Good evening. Don Palmer, Finance Director for the city, Chief Number Cruncher, and hard to act to follow with the school district, and the esteemed colleague, Parks and Rec Director. So tonight I'm here to talk about the City Council approving the refinancing of 1998 general obligation bonds, which financed the construction of the Hamilton Aquatic swimming pool and the 2002 sewer revenue bonds that produced the construction of Phase 3 of the wastewater treatment plant renovation. And now we're refinancing those bonds at a lower interest rate than the time frame that was given in 1998 and 2002. So we put a team together, and it's K.L. Gates, K&L Gates, and Cynthia Weed is here, D.A. Davidson, and we have two representatives there, Jack McLaughlin and Mike King. Thank you. Sorry about that. And then Gary and I worked on this quite a bit, and my staff, Sue Nelson, putting stuff with staff from D.A. Davidson. Together with those two bond refinancings, we were able to save on the GO side property tax dollars, and then on the sewer revenue side, revenues that are generated from rates that sewer rates that are produced through the billings that we bill out every month. That total amount is almost $1,047,000 over the next 12 years. So only portion of the bonds are callable, the 2012 and beyond. The next 2 years are not. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jack, and he will talk about the financial analysis, the bond rating that we just received from Standard & Poor's, and then Cynthia will talk about the bond ordinances.
Thank you, Don. Mayor Cheney, members of the council and staff, Jack McLaughlin, D.A. Davidson and Company, Spokane, and with me is Mike King from our Coeur d'Alene office. I've had the privilege of working with the city over the last about 10 years as an investment banker on your municipal bond issuance. And I'm very pleased to be here for a couple of reasons. One, it's always nice to be the purveyor of very good news, and we do have good news for the city. But before I start, I'd like to really thank Don, Gary, and Sue Nelson. You don't have this in the really good form. You'll all have one. This is a preliminary official statement. There'll be one with interest rates and everything in it. And we are very highly regulated. There's a lot of information we put in, historical financial information, general and economic information, and information about the city, a lot of financial and other information. And I encourage you all to look at it. This is the way that we look at cities, and it's the way rating agencies and potential investors look at it. I gave you each a packet, and I'd like to start on the right-hand side, please. First of all, always a question is, you know, an A is not like an A in high school. We have a AAA, but the United States government is no longer a AAA. They were downgraded to a AA plus by Standard & Poor's. And even though the super committee didn't come up with a plan to slash the national budget, Standard & Poor's said they have no plan at this time to downgrade the United States Treasury bills, notes, and bonds again. So they remain a AA plus. But this is real telling. If you look at this, the top part where you have a AAA, AA, and A, those all the way down to a triple B minus, those are called investment grade. But even more important, when you get to the AAA and in the AA category, those are called high grade. And they're prime, and they're very sought after, especially in times when there is a flight to quality, when people are a little fearful about their money, fearful about the state of municipalities and their finance. We have some very large bankruptcies taking place throughout the country, so there's a little fear. Even though in the long run, municipal bonds, there's a less than a 1% default rate on them. So, and most of those are usually hospital or whoops or some other more risky type investment. So you can look at this and see that in the AA and the AAA category, the high grade, you get in very good company. I mean, it's very difficult to get that. And I am pleased to report that the city received on their unlimited tax general obligation refunding bonds a AA minus. For a small city, that is not easy to do. And I always have to give credit where credit is due. I'll take part of the credit because we put the right information together. We had a conference call with the rating agency, and I will say that Gary Riedner and Don Palmer just did excellent jobs. I mean, they asked some hard questions, but both of them are so knowledgeable, and they have their arms, Don around the finance and Gary around the whole operation, that I will say that I work with many cities, counties, special purpose districts, and you're fortunate to have this team. They're a very good team for you. So for a small city to get a AA minus on your UTGOs means a lot. What does that kind of mean? Here's another little insert in your packet. The only part, you can look at all of it if you like, the only part I want to draw your attention to is on the last page. This really pretty one with the little graphic. What this does is it goes back prior to the financial meltdown that we experienced. And you'll see that in the bar graph and in the legend that the BBB to the AA and the AAA, that the differential between the interest rates was very low. The top one is a 1 year, a 10-year, and a 20-year. So you'll see that the differential was very small. The market said municipal bonds are real safe. Don't worry about it. If it's a BBB or a non-rated or a AAA, you know, they're going to be okay. You'll see what happened with the financial meltdown, where that spread became large, where people said there is a difference. The high grades are in very, very high demand. The lesser grades are not in so big a demand. And so it's the rating becomes even more important in today's climate than it was before. So the AA minus is a real feather in your cap. And I also report that the A plus, which is an excellent rating as well, on your sewer system was affirmed by Standard & Poor's. So that's also a plus. One of the things they don't like to do is to change ratings rapidly, because the market likes stability. They don't like you to have an A plus today and a AA tomorrow or a couple years later. So truthfully, I've been through this a lot of times. I would have given your sewer also in the AA category, you know, in looking at all your numbers, the operations and where you are. But the rating agencies have their reasons, and they do it their way. So maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right. But they're both excellent ratings, and you need to be proud of that. As I say again, for a small entity like Moscow, it shows it's very well run, very well managed, knowledgeable councils that set good policies, and good staff that carry them out. So I'm not going to go over these, but this is the rationale for the UTGOs and the revenue bonds in there. You might read that, and they'll say why they rated them as they did rate them. So with that said, a couple months ago, we met with the Public Works Committee, talking about the refinance of the bonds, going through all the details, what needed to be done, where the savings were, what we were trying to accomplish, and that was brought before the City Council to authorize us to proceed with no commitment, just proceed putting information together. As I said, we're very highly regulated, and we had to get these documents prepared. And it's not an easy task to put them together and get them right. And we did that, and again, Sue and Don and Gary really were instrumental in bringing that to pass in a timely manner. Don indicated that we have a very substantial savings to the ratepayers and to the taxpayers of the City of Moscow. The sewer bonds, which will be issued in the amount of $6 million, provide an 11.99% present value savings, which by all measures is excellent. many entities in the state of Washington and throughout, anytime they can get a 5% present value savings, they consider that a go. We want to do that and achieve that. On the sewer side, it'll result in a savings of about $75,000 a year, which is not, it's not peanuts, you know, and you're starting to go through a rate study, and that'll be taken into account when they look at the obligations on those bonds. Now it's $75,000 less. So somewhere or another that'll be reflected going forward in the sewer rates to the residents of the city of Moscow. On the GO bonds, not nearly as many bonds either. $6 million on the sewer versus $1.5 million on the GO bonds. We're able to save $20,000, or a total of $143,500 to the taxpayers. If you'll look at your little packet here, there's a lot of numbers, and trust me, I have a lot more than this. But it's a technical, technical and highly regulated by the IRS, what we can do and what we can't do. But the real important page is page number 3. If you look at page number 3, I'm in the sewer revenue as opposed to the GO. Okay? Now the sewer revenue, the outstanding bonds that we're refunding have an average coupon that you're paying right now of a little over 5%, 5.09. And we're able to issue a TIC, and this is a true interest cost on a new issue. Once you issue it, the coupon controls, because that's what you pay. But there's premiums and discounts that affect it. But the effective true interest cost is what it's called, which is a present value analysis of the cost, is a 2.317. And on page number 4, you can see the annual savings amount, which is 73, 72, 75, 76. It's all within about 5,000 of each other because municipal bonds are issued in 5,000 denominations, so it's not an equal amount each year, which shows the future value cash flow savings of $903,749.17, which is the second column from the right-hand side. I'm on page 4 of the sewer. It says savings right at the top. Okay. Now, what we also did was we released in revenue bonds. There's a reserve requirement, and the city had that fully funded. But when the debt service goes down and the reserve requirement is based upon debt service, then that reserve requirement goes down. So that freed up almost $72,000 that we could use in the refinancing, and again spread some of that savings over the life of the bonds, which still shows a cash flow savings of $75,000 a year, with the net present value savings taking into account the time value use of the reserve fund monies of $71,877. And then there's a rounding amount we add to that because bonds are issued in $5,000 denominations, so that number is always between 1 penny and $4,999.99. So for a total present value savings of $734,407.79. Now, as Don mentioned, these bonds are not callable yet at this time until 12. What we do is we take the proceeds of these bonds and we put them into escrow with U.S. bonds, with U.S. Bank, and we buy these state and local government securities, special securities issued by the U.S. government, a AA+, that will go in there to secure those bonds until they're called, and then they'll all be called, and the bonds are off the books. And to make sure that all those numbers work, we also have an escrow verification that those monies work from Barth Warman from Minneapolis, their CPA firm that specialize in this type, and we have received a preliminary report that all the numbers work fine and comply with IRS regulations, and the monies invested will be sufficient to retire the bonds. So there's a lot more in here. We can go as long as you like, but that's the story on those. Do you have any questions?
Council? Wayne, Public Works Finance had a look at this, conversation about it.
Well, I wasn't here if they did.
Okay,
Yes,
who
he
subbed
did.
for you?
Big Tom.
We did.
That'd be
Tom, the chair.
Tom?
We did. And we were very excited to hear how it was going to go this next week. So that meeting took place on Monday, and then we understood that late last week there was going to be the actual formal process.
Yes,
And-
which is the actual pricing, sale, official order period to lock in the rates. And we were able to, by the way, your bonds were very, very well received. Very well received. They sold some banks in Washington, banks in Idaho, I think some individual investors, some funds back east, and some banks in the Midwest purchased the bonds.
Okay, excellent.
So they're well distributed.
Thank you.
And we're now going to get college credit for the education we got at the last public finance.
That's right.
Good for you, all right.
That's right.
Wayne?
Well, I'll rephrase what I just said. I wasn't here because I was on vacation, and thank you, Tom, for sitting in on that. This is something that we have been looking at, though, over a period of probably, 6 or 8 weeks, I think, Don, as we've been
Yes.
preparing
Yes.
for this, and you folks have spoken to us before about this. So we are, in fact, very excited about it.
Yeah.
That's thousands of dollars that we can put someplace else, so.
Absolutely.
And particularly in today's economy, with, as you say, municipalities failing on a fairly, unfortunately, a regular basis around the country, for us to have this type of a bonding rating speaks very highly of Don and Gary and the rest of the city staff, and I think the entire city of Moscow. So I want to thank you guys for that.
And just for the general public to know, this is $7.5 million worth of refinancing. This is not brand-new debt. This is refinancing old debt and saving a whole lot of money for the city in the process.
And taxpayers.
Walter?
Just as one additional point, which, I mean, I've been in this business since the early 70s, and these interest rates are really something, even though it's not a real long issue. The sewer revenue refunding bonds have a true interest cost of 2.317, and the UTGOs of 1.608. Now, these are just rates that I haven't seen.
To die for.
They are.
And you could still sell them.
Well, here again, what are people going to do with their money? They read the report, they look at your rating, and they say this is a safe place to park the money. Now, individuals normally at these levels are not much interested. I mean, we sell a tremendous amount of bonds when we reach certain plateaus because they are tax-free bonds. And there's some tax. We had an experience in Chelan County. I did an issue there. We put a big ad in the paper trying to sell some locally. We didn't get one response. Same thing with Othello. We did a street issue for them, and they were an A-plus rated LTGO, limited tax GO, and we put ads and not one response from the retail sector. We sold the bonds institutionally. The institutions buy if they're 10% or if they're 1%. If that's where the market is, they're buyers. They constantly buy and don't try to outguess. They just want market rates. So their market rates are very low right now, to your benefit.
That's right. Walter, did you have a question or comment?
No, ma'am, I had a comment for Wayne and Sue. Wayne's comment was that we can spend that money elsewhere. We'll have that discussion later, Wayne. I'd prefer to refund it to the citizens of Moscow by lowering their tax bite. And I think Sue did a kind of a semi-echo with Wayne, so we'll also have that discussion.
No.
I think you said savings to the city.
Well,
I prefer to think of it as savings to the citizens.
As a
fine.
response to Walter, actually, we won't be spending the money because it will come back to the citizens in readjusted sewer rates, as Don had already commented on,
or we won't have to charge
as we
them.
do our rate studies.
Or we won't have to charge them as much when we have
It'll
to
all
do our
factor into rate
stormwater.
studies.
Okay, looks like you've generated some dialogue here. Just
It's okay,
so
well,
we
that's
have
good.
another one here, Tom.
Well, I just wanted to make a motion, if I may,
Please,
to approve the ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by
Second.
summary.
Okay, now we have 2 ordinances before us.
Well, I think we should do Well, if we could do both at the same time, that'd be great, but I don't think we can. I think we should do the sewer one first.
Well,
and then we
let's
can
see,
do
we'll
the-
ask our city attorney's advice. Any preference here?
No preference.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
since
if I
you want to take
may,
them
I
in
would like to
numerical
just-
order, the unlimited tax general obligation refunding bonds 2011 is the first of the two numerically, followed by the sewer revenue refunding bonds of 2011.
And if I'm permitted to do them all in one motion, that would be great. If you would prefer them in two separate motions, I can do that too.
And you said either way, it's fine.
Separate motions
It's
is
fine by
fine.
me. Two separate motions, okay.
Well, the CCNR calls for approve the ordinances as one motion, so which is it?
That's true.
One or two?
You can do it in two, that would be cleaner.
I'll do the first one then.
Okay,
first.
there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Wayne had
Okay, we
already.
have Tom's motion and Wayne's second. Is there discussion before voting? Okay, we'll start this roll call vote with Tim.
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries, and so we have ordinance number 2011-18. Did you say read by title, I hope, and published by summary?
Yes, I did all
Thank
of
you
that.
so much.
I did hear him
An
say
ordinance
that.
of the city of Moscow,
Actually, I
Idaho.
wanted Jack to read the entire thing.
Did you?
That's
Okay.
what my motion was.
Okay, so this is ordinance number 2011-18.
Hope you're not paying him by
Ordinance
the hour,
of the
then.
City of Moscow, Latah County, Idaho, authorizing the issuance and sale of the city's unlimited tax general obligation refunding bonds 2011 in the aggregate principal amount of $1,500,000 to provide the funds necessary to refund certain outstanding general obligation bonds of the city, authorizing the appointment of an escrow agent and execution of an escrow agreement, providing the terms of the bonds, providing for the annual levy of taxes to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, authorizing a preliminary official statement, and authorizing the sale of such bonds. Okay?
And that was the GO one, right?
Correct.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Who seconded that motion?
Wayne?
Wayne?
Thank you.
So if I may, I'd like to make the second motion to approve the second, the sewer revenue refunding bonds under suspension of the rules requiring three complete and separate readings, and that they be read by title and published by summary only.
And I'll second that one.
Okay, we have Tom's motion and Wayne's second. Is there discussion of this before voting? And hearing none, we'll start this roll call vote with Walter.
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries as well. And we have ordinance number 2011-19, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Latah County, Idaho, authorizing the issuance and sale of the city's sewer revenue refunding bonds 2011 in the aggregate principal amount of $6 million, appointing an escrow agent and execution of an escrow agreement, providing for the terms of the bonds, providing for the form, covenants, and terms of the bonds, approving a preliminary official statement, authorizing a final official statement, and authorizing the sale of such bonds.